Trying to predict the future is a discouraging and hazardous occupation.
When we were first introduced to the world of 28 Days Later, there was always a feel of the experimental, and that the movie stayed true to the ideas and themes that led it to becoming a standout in the zombie subgenre. The sequel, while somewhat overlooked, expanded upon the apocalypse, introducing new ideas and themes of the past, not quite ready to leave us behind. And in years, they gave us a fresh new take, with themes of England's heritage, a boy's journey into becoming a man, and at the root of it all, a longing for connection and a love for his mother. With the release of the follow-up The Bone Temple, I was curious to see how this world and Spike's journey would continue, and I must say, it wasn't what I was expecting. Each film within a franchise focuses on a plethora of ideas and themes, and much like the previous, there are many flowing through this one, such as ideas of belief, different points of view, religion. But the one that kept cropping up to me was the idea of evolution. The most obvious example of this is with the infected Samson. Throughout the videos I've made on the 28 Days Later universe, I've rarely talked about the infected, rather just explaining that the virus isn't necessarily a regular zombie infection, but an overwhelming, terrifying consumption of rage. And for most of the films, that's what it has been. However, 28 years touched upon the theme of the infected evolving. After all, having a virus that's lasted nearly 3 decades, there's no doubt going to be some sort of evolution. The more in-your-face evolution of the infected is through the alphas, whose presence makes for a terrifying blend of the animal kingdom within the world of the infected. They wait out for their prey, mark their territory, and lead hordes of others. And this is where we get Samson's evolution. Throughout the movie, Dr. Kelson forms a connection with Samson, giving him doses of morphine, where his mind is no longer blinded by rage. In these moments, Kelson shows him music and nature. I couldn't help but draw parallels to Frankenstein, with Kelson, albeit in a much more wholesome way, guiding this monster to become more human. This adds a new layer upon viewing the infected. When you take a step back, looking in previous films, it's clear to see that their bodies are being taken over by something, that their true inner self would never commit these acts. As Kelson says within the film, he's seen them kill babies before, which pose no threat. They aren't doing this willingly. The infected evolved to become more human within the eyes of the audience. The obvious evolution of Samson, as we gradually see him acquire clothes, wash himself, and for the first time in a franchise, speak. This human side to the infected then evolves the perception of the infected as a whole. We, the audience, begin to see the infected as just what they are, sick people who can be treated. Dr. Kelson, who I didn't really discuss much in the last video, as I thought he'd have a bigger role in the sequel, represents an evolution of the survivor. He's past the points of survival, which he does to great effect, but chooses to understand the world around him, studying the infected, treating Samson, and building a monument to the dead, the titular Bone Temple. Despite his appearance, Kelson is kind and hospitable to all survivors. While he greatly misses the past, he's learned to evolve with the times and sees the world for what it has become. When the Jimmy's mistaken for Satan, despite his obvious appearance, it's clear to see why he stands out within the world. He's a figure who's evolved past people's regular perception of a survivor, so they can't help but interpret him as something otherworldly. This then leads me to the antagonist of the film set up at the end of the first, Jimmy Crystal. Jimmy is a cult-like figure who latches on to religious ideology instilled with him from his childhood, which we see played out at the start of 28 Years Later. He's a truly grotesque individual, recruiting other followers into his cult of Satanists, with each Jimmy representing one of the 6 fingers. Spike is recruited into this cult at the beginning of the film, with him having to fight one of the other Jimmys to take their place. He has no choice in this, as straying from the group would result in his death. Jimmy is the main villain of the film because of his inability to evolve. While evolution has been a theme within the entire piece, each character goes through some form of it. Jimmy's entire beliefs and personality stem from his past and not being able to overcome it, with him being stuck within the trauma of his childhood, latching on to stuff like the Teletubbies, his religious beliefs, and even his appearance, which is based on a figure from UK TV at the time, reflects a corrupt and dark shadow that looms over his childhood. Even at the start of the movie, where he inducts Spike into his group, it's within a dilapidated leisure centre, a place where children would have spent time before the apocalypse. He unleashes death, torture and destruction upon the world as a way to cope with his inability and insecurities about his own life. This does not excuse any of his actions, but merely explains why he does the things he does. He is an extremely manipulative individual, being able to persuade people into doing his bidding, but like many cult leaders, underneath his facade is a weak, insecure bully. The parallels between these characters and their evolution is an idea and concept that I think brings a unique twist to the narrative. Despite being human, Jimmy actively chooses to destroy the world around him, torture people far beyond what any infected would be capable of, whereas Samson, with guidance from Kelson, evolves past the point of causing harm, despite being capable of doing so. The lack of evolution from Jimmy is what ultimately causes his downfall. He's so wrapped in his beliefs and pursuit of power, it ultimately causes his downfall. We see this at the end of the movie, where the three characters mentioned all get what they deserve. Samson beats the infection. Jimmy is crucified, and Kelson, in death, finally saw the results of his compassion and love come into life. Spike's journey and longing for a connection within the world is tested to an extent far more than in the previous film. He sees the horrors the world has to offer. He confides in Kelly, aka Jimmy Inc., whom believes in Satanism, but also sees through Jimmy's facade. As she would have been a child at the start of the outbreak, she's corrupted in a way where she's never been able to evolve past the world. She assimilates into the group so she can survive. And when Spike is recruited, she can see herself within him, a person who has not been corrupted yet, in a way for redemption. An opportunity for herself to evolve past what she's been stuck in for so many years, and to be able to help another person do the same, something she wished could have happened to her. And that's where we leave the Bone Temple. These characters who have found something within each other they both need, they now have an opportunity to evolve into something better than before. Something I believe this trilogy's core will be all about when it's wrapped up. Spike's journey for connection and his evolution into something more, something greater, and maybe help from a different Jim will guide him to finding this.